At 7:12 a.m., I found a key on the bus stop bench with a small wooden tag that said Bright Bean. It was warm already, even for San Diego, and the key sat in a little pool of sun like it had been waiting for me. I turned it over in my hand. The tag had a phone number burned into it with one of those craft tools. I should have walked on. I was late to my own normal morning. Emails, a quiet desk, cereal that goes soft in 5 minutes. Instead, I called the number. It rang and rang. No answer. I looked up and saw the Bright Bean coffee shop across the street with its gate half up and a closed sign hanging crooked. A woman in scrubs leaned against the wall outside, eyes half closed, coffee dreams in her face. A mail carrier sat on the curb tying his shoe. A bulldog named Pickles, if the collar could be trusted, snored at their feet. I crossed the street with the key warm in my palm and a thought in my head. Maybe I could return this and start my day with good karma and better coffee. Up close, the shop smelled like yesterday's espresso and cinnamon. The lock on the gate looked at me like a question. I tried the number again. Still nothing. The woman in scrubs nodded at me. "You work here?" she asked, voice soft from night shift. "No," I said. "I just found this key." The mail carrier chuckled. "Then today's your lucky audition." He had a square jaw and kind eyes. His name tag said Ken. I could have walked away. I could have set the key on the mat, pushed the gate up just enough to slip it under, and left. But the bulldog lifted one ear, and the woman in scrubs, Nadia, she told me later, gave me a tired smile that reminded me of long nights at my dad's deli in Tampa, when he would come home smelling like onions and warm bread, and I would pretend I wasn't waiting up for him. I tested the key. It fit. The gate rose with a rough, rolling sound, and the little bell on the door chimed like a toy xylophone. Inside, the lights were off, the espresso machine blinked a single green eye, and someone had left a handwritten list on the counter under a magnet shaped like a lemon. Opening steps, it read, "Turn on lights. Grind beans. Set pastries. Play the morning playlist." The handwriting was neat and round, with tiny hearts on the eyes, which made me nervous. You don't want to disappoint someone who draws hearts on their eyes. I flicked the lights. A warm hush fell over the room, like the shop had let out a breath it had been holding all night. People drifted in behind me, small and polite, like we were stepping into a church. "Is it open?" a teenager with a skateboard asked. His board had stickers of space shuttles and a small chip on the tail. "Not really," I said, "but we'll figure it out." I was not sure what it was. My phone buzzed, finally, and a breathless voice said, "Hi, you found my key. I'm Mara, the owner. I got a flat on El Cajon. I'm 10 minutes out. Can you?" "This is crazy. Can you just let people wait inside? Turn on the playlist, and I'll be there before the drip finishes." Before the drip finishes, I thought. That seemed like a safe line. I told her yes and hung up, feeling both brave and ridiculous. I found the Bluetooth speaker and hit the button. A gentle guitar slid into the room. I set the closed sign behind the counter and flipped the little chalkboard to read back I intend. Nadia sank into a chair by the window with a long, grateful exhale. Ken stood by the napkins, like he was guarding them from a stampede. The teenager, Leo, rolled his board back and forth with one foot, quiet as a cat. A man in a suit came in, looked at me, then at the machines, and raised an eyebrow. I nodded in a way I hoped looked professional, even though my entire training for this moment came from a drip machine in my kitchen and a summer in high school, when I once made cappuccinos for a week at my uncle's restaurant while the regular guy got married. The opening steps had a note under it. "If you're ever in a pinch, the drip is easy. Bean bin under counter. Filters in drawer. Big silver brewer on the right." Pinch, I said under my breath, like I was in a movie where the lead character whispers the clue to himself. I found the bin. The smell of fresh beans is a kind of promise. I scooped, leveled, set the filter, and tried to look like I did this every day. Nadia watched me with a kind of gentle amusement. "You've got this," she said. It felt like the exact right level of support to give a stranger who was about to risk everyone's morning. I poured water into the brewer and pressed the big round button. The machine woke up with a low, brave roar, like a small airplane deciding to take off after all. The man in the suit cleared his throat. "Do you take cards?" he asked. "Not me," I said. "Drip is on the house until Mara gets here. There's a tip jar if you feel weird about free things." He frowned at the jar, like it was a moral test he hadn't studied for, then dropped a 5 in with a tiny theatrical sigh that made me like him more than I should have. Ken grinned and tapped the side of the jar with his ring finger. "Great acoustics," he said. It made a hollow, hopeful sound. By the time the air pot was full, the room had settled into a pleasant kind of hold. The playlist kept going. The sun made a neat rectangle on the floor that slowly moved toward the register. I lined up paper cups and wrote drip on the side of each with a marker because it felt official. I poured for Nadia first. She took her cup and wrapped both hands around it, eyes closed like a prayer. "You saved my morning," she said. "I only ever need black coffee and a place to sit." I poured for Ken next, then for Leo, who added cream and stirred like he was mixing paint. The man in the suit said he would wait for the real stuff, and I said I understood. He sat anyway, scrolled his phone, and pretended not to enjoy the music. The door kept chiming. A woman with a running visor. A guy with paint speckled on his forearms. An older man with a crossword he attacked with a pen. A neighbor I knew by face, if not by name, nodded at me like the sight of me behind the counter was interesting but not entirely shocking. San Diego is that kind of city. People try things. They lend you tools and trust you to bring them back. As I poured, I thought of my dad again, my small hands stacking napkins, his big hands pressing sandwiches, the bell on the deli door, the way a place can teach you how to belong just by asking for help and then letting you give it. Mara texted a photo of a car tire with a screw in it and wrote, 5 minutes. Thank you, with 3 exclamation marks that felt like small flags of relief. I looked around at my unexpected crew and felt, in that gentle, humming shop, something shift. I hadn't planned to start a day with strangers. I hadn't planned anything at all. But the coffee was hot, the light was kind, and my shirt already smelled like roast and sugar. I stood a little straighter, wiped a ring of drip from the counter, and told myself a simple thing I'd learned more than once. Sometimes you don't need permission. You just need a reason and a door that opens. The second pot gurgled to life like a friendly creak, and I settled into a rhythm. Pour, smile, thank you next. I kept it simple, drip only. Add cream if you want, sugar on the side. I didn't touch the espresso machine. Its chrome face watched me with a cool, important stare, and the small green light blinked like a heartbeat. Ken stepped around the counter and started handing out lids without being asked. "I sort mail all day," he said. "I can sort lids for 10 minutes. Leo found a stack of sleeves with a little cartoon bean on them and passed them down the line like we were at a baseball game, passing hot dogs. We were a quiet assembly line, the kind that makes small mornings work. Word travels faster than steam. A woman in a visor told a runner friend on speaker. A contractor texted his crew. Someone posted a photo on the neighborhood app. "The new guy at Bright Bean is nice. Come get a free drip and say hi." The caption made me laugh. New guy. I looked down at the apron I'd found hanging on a hook, plain black, flour dust on it from yesterday, and I felt a tiny, foolish pride. The apron didn't make me official, but it did make me careful. I was suddenly very aware of the line where helpful becomes presumptuous. We had our first small crisis when the lights flickered and went out. everything humming down to a hush. A groan rose from the room like we were all one person. "Breaker," Ken said, already moving. He'd been here before, I could tell. He pushed through the swinging door to the back with the confidence of a man who knows where things are in rooms he doesn't own. I followed, feeling like I'd signed up for a class I had no right to be in. The breaker panel was on the wall above a stack of milk crates. The list taped next to it said which switch was which in more neat handwriting. Ken flipped the third one, and the lights came back with a soft cheer from the front. I inhaled. Crisis averted. We returned to our positions, a little closer for having done that together. Nadia had fallen asleep in the corner chair, her coffee half gone, and her head leaning against the wall under a framed photo of the pier. I grabbed a hoodie from the merch shelf, the one with the shop's logo, and draped it over her like a light blanket. I left a sticky note on the armrest that said, "We'll wake you when your ride gets here, Mara." It felt like the right lie to tell. The older man with the crossword looked up. Pen paused. "Good thinking, kid," he said, "though I am no longer a kid by any measure that involves knees or back pain." He introduced himself as Mr. Benton and went back to his puzzle with a look of deep peace that only coffee and a sharpened pen can bring. The man in the suit came to the counter and tapped the glass. "I have a meeting at 8:30, he said. "Any news on all that?" He nodded toward the espresso machine like it was a sleeping bear. "Owner is 5 minutes away," I said. "If you want, I can pour you a drip as a placeholder." He looked at the drip pot the way a pilot might look at a bicycle. But then he sighed and said, "Fine. Half a cup." I poured, and he took a tiny sip like he was doing a science experiment, and the coffee was the control. His face softened. "It's good," he admitted. He put a tin in the jar and, with the complicated relief of a man willing to change his mind, took the cup back to his table. Mara called. 2 minutes, she said. The relief in her voice loosened something in me. "How many people?" "A dozen," I said. "We're pouring drip." I didn't touch the machine. "You're a saint," she said. "But saints still get yelled at. So let me handle any complaints when I walk in." "Copy," I said, like I had a radio on my shoulder and a badge on my chest. With the room steady again, small stories began to float up. Ken told me he used to deliver mail in Phoenix and had learned to drive with oven mitts for the steering wheel. Leo said he was filming a trick for his channel where he jumps the curb and lands on the bench, except he'd only landed it once and his elbow still remembered the first 10 tries. Mr. Benton had lived in Detroit before his daughter moved him west and, in his words, blessed him with sunshine and the chance to be confused by a grapefruit tree. The woman in the visor had come to San Diego for a weekend 7 years ago and somehow never left. She kept finding new reasons to stay, like the water was always telling her one more thing. I set a small plate of packaged scones on the counter with a note that said IOU, and people took them slowly, like they were borrowing kindness and would return it later with interest. The tip jar filled with ones and a couple of 20s, the green edges peeking like grass. The air smelled like roast and sugar and the faint, clean snap of bleach from a mop bucket somewhere in the back. I felt that warm, easy weight in my chest that shows up when strangers treat each other well. It's not loud. It doesn't post about itself. It just sits there and makes everything feel possible. The door chimed and Mara rushed in, cheeks pink from the heat, hair in a low bun that had given up. She wore a navy shirt with the shop logo and a smear of black grease on her forearm. "You're a hero," she said, laughing as she moved behind the counter like a dancer who knows every step. She washed her hands, reset the grinder, touched the machine with the affection of a person greeting a friend. "Okay," she said to the room, clapping once. "Thank you for being patient. Let's get everyone what they actually came for." The room answered with a soft ripple of cheers and the kind of applause that sounds like rain. I stepped back, apron suddenly too big. Mara shot me a quick grin. Don't go far, she said. You're part of this now. And just like that, I was. Mara made the kind of espressos that make people close their eyes. The machine sighed, hissed, and sang. Cups moved along the bar like small boats. She worked fast, but never rushed, calling out names, teaching me how to steam milk without scalding it, letting me pull a shot under her hand like a kid learning to drive in an empty parking lot. You've got a good touch, she said, and I laughed because my hands were shaking a little. I had a great teacher, I said, and meant all of it. Her, my dad, the whole morning. The man in the suit stepped up and ordered a double cappuccino with such seriousness that I felt I should salute. Mara made it and slid it across. He took a sip, paused, then made a small face I could not read. He looked up. This is perfect, he said, giving a nod that contained an apology for earlier. Thanks now, and maybe a promise to come back tomorrow. He put another 10 in the jar and left with a speed that said he might still beat the traffic on the 163. Nadia woke up gently, like a sunrise, and smiled when she realized the hoodie around her shoulders wasn't her own. You're safe, I said. Mara's here. Mara waved. You saved me, she told Nadia. You and this guy. She pointed at me with her portafilter and grinned. Nadia took a latte to go, wrote thank you on a napkin, and tucked it under the tip jar like a secret. Ken stayed and helped me wipe tables even after his watch told him he was late. It's a federal offense to be late? I asked. He laughed. Only if I also steal the pens. When the rush softened, Mara poured us both cold brew in short glasses, dark as soda, with cinnamon syrup and a twist of orange. New experiment, she said. Tell me the truth. I took a sip and tasted summer. Bright, cool, a little sweet, the cinnamon waving from the back like an old friend across a park. It tastes like shade, I said. In a good way. She nodded. I'll put that on a chalkboard. Tastes like shade. She leaned on the counter. Thank you for not only opening the door, but opening the morning. That's a lot. I shrugged, feeling a pleasant heat in my face. It was just 10 minutes. 10 minutes can change a day, she said. Sometimes a week. She reached under the counter and handed me a clean apron, folded, with my name written on a piece of tape. You don't have to wear it. But if you do, the coffee will taste a little better. I laughed. That's not science. It might be, she said, and I decided I didn't need all my facts to be facts today. People started pinning small notes to a cork board near the door that I hadn't noticed before. At the top it said on my way today in chalk, each word in a different color. Under it, someone wrote, job interview. Wish me luck. Another note said, first day of school drop-off, and there was a doodle of a tiny backpack. I wrote, returning a key, apparently, and drew a rectangle that might have been a key or a very poor fish. Leo added, landing the bench trick, with a small rocket ship. Mr. Benton wrote, finishing the Friday crossword on a Monday, then frowned and changed Friday to Monday. Accuracy matters, he said, pinning it with care. Around 11, the shop had that calm after-song feeling. We cleaned the counters, restocked lids, and set out new sleeves with fall colors because someone had delivered them early and they made the room look like October. Mara printed a small photo from her instant camera. The group of us behind the counter and in front of it, cups raised, eyes bright. She taped it to the wall with a caption in her neat handwriting. The morning we met. Under it, a date. It looked like the kind of thing you see months later and remember the way the air felt. I offered to pay for my coffee. Mara shook her head. You paid in time. She handed me a stack of free drip cards anyway, each one stamped with the Bean logo. Give them to people you think need a better morning. I took them and thought of the woman at my bus stop who always reads on the bench, the guy at the corner store who knows everyone by name, The neighbor who waters plants for the whole building when it gets hot. I liked the idea that a card could be a small door. Before I left, I wrote one more note for the board. Saturday morning club, 8 a.m. Tell a short story while we pour the drip. Mara read it and nodded. I'm in, she said. Ken pointed at his chest. You're not getting rid of me. Nadia had already texted a thumbs up from her bus. Leo filmed a short video of the board and said he'd edit it later with a song that feels like pancakes. Mr. Benton tapped his pen on the table like applause. I'll bring a new pen, he said. I stepped out into the noon sun with coffee on my breath and the shop's warm smell on my shirt. The city felt a little closer than it had at 7. The bus stop bench where I'd found the key now held 2 teenagers sharing fries from the diner next door, and it felt like a good omen for someone else's story. My phone buzzed with an email that could wait and a text from my sister asking if I still had Dad's sandwich press. I smiled, answered yes, and put the apron in my backpack with the free drip cards and the napkin Nadia had left. My pockets were full of small proof that a morning had happened. On Saturday, I went back in the same shirt on purpose because I liked the way it kept the memory. Mara handed me a marker and I wrote the first chalkboard prompt. Tell us one small thing that saved your week. People did. A stranger's jumpstart. A good mango. A new word that made a sentence work. It turns out stories are like coffee. You don't always need a big one. Sometimes a small one wakes you up just fine. The shop filled with the sound of voices and steam, and the board filled with notes, and the room felt like a living thing that could carry us all a little longer. When I finally headed home, late afternoon now and shadows long on the sidewalk, I thought about the simple math of it. I had found a key. I had opened a door. We had held a morning together so it didn't fall apart. That was all. But it was also more. On my way down the block, I looked back through the big front window. Mara was laughing with a customer. Ken was at the corner table reading the paper. Leo was showing someone his video, and Mr. Benton was holding up his completed crossword like a small flag. The bell chimed as someone new walked in. I breathed in, slow, the way you do when you want to keep a smell for later. At the crosswalk, the light changed. I slipped the clean apron strap through my fingers, felt the soft cotton, and smiled. I hadn't planned any of this, and that was the best part. I didn't need a plan. I needed a morning, a key, and a city that lets you borrow a little piece of it when you reach out your hand. I gave the day back the same way I'd found it, simple, warm, and a little brighter than before.